Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. So, juz number 16 currently. And in juz number 16, we have Surah Maryam. And this is when if we're ever in a dialogue with Christians, then we can tell them that there is an entire surah named after the mother of Jesus, of Isa alayhi salam. So in verse number 29, so we have in Surah Maryam the incident of Maryam alayhi salam, that Jibreel alayhi salam blew into her womb, and as a result she became an expectant mother. And after she became an expectant mother, the people they began to point fingers at her, and they said that you are an unchaste woman. And she received divine inspiration to direct their questions towards the child after she had given birth. So this is mentioned in the Quran, verse number 29, فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ قَالُوا كَيْفَ نُكَلِّمُ مَنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَهْدِ صَبِيًّا. So she indicated towards Isa alayhi salam, and they said that how can we speak to someone who is in the cradle and is a child? And then Isa alayhi salam, he began to speak, قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ. And this is definitive and clear, manifest proof that Isa alayhi salam is not the son of God. Rather, he is Abdullah. So he calls himself as such. He calls himself as Abdullah, meaning that I am the servant of Allah. Atani al-kitaba wa ja'alani nabiyya. He has given me the book and he has made me a prophet. So again, this is explicit proof, very clear, manifest evidence that Isa alayhi salam is the servant of Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him the Injil, وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا, and he has made me a prophet. وَجَعَلَنِي مُبَارَكًا أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me wherever I may be. وَأَوْصَانِي بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ مَا دُمْتُ حَيًّا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded me to observe the prayer, to discharge the obligation of zakat. So, which means what? That prayer and zakat, charity, this was something that was found in the deen of Isa alayhi salam. So for as long as I live, ma dumtu hayya, so as long as I am living, then I have been commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to offer the salat and discharge the obligation of zakat. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي, and that I call towards the obedience of my mother. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي, and that I am obedient to my mother. وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْنِي جَبَّارًا شَقِيًّا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made me insolent, and he has not made me wretched. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ أُبْعَثُ حَيًّا, and salam and peace upon me the day that I was born, the day that I will depart from this world, the day I die, and the day that I will be resurrected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alive. ذَلِكَ Isa ibn Maryam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is Isa, the son of Maryam alayhi salam. قَوْلَ الْحَقِّ الَّذِي فِيهِ يَمْتَرُونَ. This is the true word in which they argue and dispute, and which they have doubts. So in this Surah Maryam, the entire Surah Maryam, and this is we can say that Surah Maryam, this goes against everything that the Christians they believe. They level charges against Maryam alayhi salam that she was an unchaste woman, And this surah, what it does more than anything is that not only does it exonerate Maryam alayhi salam, but it establishes the servitude of Isa alayhi salam. It establishes that Isa alayhi salam was the servant of Allah. He was a Nabi. He was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to call towards salat and zakat, to be compassionate and to be obedient to his mother. He was not made to be insolent. He was not a wretched person. He was a person that was a Nabi, a noble person, an honorable person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is Isa bin Maryam. In short, this is who he is. This is what he is calling to. His message was very clear. And this is directed at the Christians, that what you're saying and what you're insinuating, that he is the son of God, this is not only an injustice against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is an injustice against Isa alayhi salam, because he never said anything of the sort. So this entire surah is about Maryam alayhi salam, where it establishes that she was a chaste woman, contrary to what many Christians believe. Continuing on, Surah Taha. This is a Makki surah, and it begins with Taha ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa illa tadhkira liman yakhsha tanzila mimman khalaqa al-arda was-samawati al-ula. So in this surah, the beginning verses of this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with the disjointed letters Taha, and then ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa, that we have not revealed this Quran unto you so that it becomes difficult for you. This is not the objective and purpose of the Quran. Illa tadhkira liman yakhsha. Rather, what it is a reminder, it is a rejoinder for the people who are God conscious. Tanzila mimman khalaqa al-arda was-samawati al-ula. This is a revelation from the one who has created the earth and the heavens, the lofty heavens. So this surah was the surah that encouraged Umar radiallahu anh to accept Islam. So when Umar radiallahu anh, when he was on his way, cutting a long story short, when he was on his way to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was met by Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. And Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas told him that, why are you after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He wanted to divert the attention of Umar radiallahu anh away from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, you should be looking at what's going on in your own homes. So Umar radiallahu anh, he became angered by this, and he went to the home of his sister Fatima and her husband Sa'id, and he asked them that, what are you doing? And they said that, we're reading the Quran. And he became angered at this, and he struck his sister. After he struck his sister, and again, cutting a long story short, he felt remorse, and then he finally asked his sister that, what were you reading? Let me see. And Umar radiallahu anh, he was a learned man. He was a learned man. He could read, he could write. He was one of the few in Makkah who was able to read and write. So his sister said that, you are an unclean polytheist and you need to perform the ablution. So he performed the ablution and he read Surah Taha. So this is a very powerful surah where it just begins by saying, Ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa. So after the disjointed letters, it begins by saying, Ma anzalna al-Qur'ana litashqa, that we have not revealed this Quran unto you to make your life difficult. Rather, the objective and purpose of the Quran is illumination, to enlighten you. It's a reminder for the person who fears Allah, for the person who is God conscious. And a person who is God conscious would want to know what exactly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them. For a person who is truly in the presence of God, this person would want to know that, okay, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trying to tell me? What am I supposed to do in this world? So for that person, the Quran is going to guide. The Quran will be a guidance, and this person, he will be edified by virtue of the Quran and by following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he read through Surah Taha, Umar radiallahu anh, he became very impressed and he became very drawn to the rhythm of the Quran, because this was one of the rare opportunities he got to read the Quran firsthand. Because When the Quran was being revealed and when the Prophet ﷺ would recite the Quran at any time, then they would make loud noises. There would be a loud din. The polytheists, they didn't want people to hear. They would talk and shout just so that they wouldn't have to listen to the Quran, and also so other people didn't have to listen to the Quran. So Umar radiallahu anh, after reading Taha, he became very drawn to the Quran. It has a magnetic appeal. The surah has this magnetic appeal, and the way it is recited, that too, it has a very rhythmic flow, although it's nothing like poetry. It's very unlike poetry, but there is a rhythm with Surah Taha. So he became impressed, and he asked to be taken to the Prophet ﷺ. And after he was taken to the Prophet ﷺ in Darul Arqam, this is where he accepted Islam. So this is that surah, Surah Taha. As a result of Umar radiallahu anh reading it, he accepted Islam. Continuing on, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ وَنَحْشُرُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. This is in Surah Taha, that whoever turns away from my remembrance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. Then his rizq and his ma'isha, his rizq, his sustenance will be constrained. He will have a constrained sustenance. وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. So this is the first punishment, that his sustenance will be constrained. The second punishment is that we will resurrect him on the day of judgment blind. أعمى. قال ربي لما حشرتني أعمى وقد كنت بصيرا. This is, subhanAllah, this is a very powerful verse, and it should open our eyes. So that person will be resurrected blind. And oh my Allah, why did you resurrect me blind? وقد كنت بصيرا. When I was in the world, I was able to see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا. That this is how it is. That when my clear and manifest signs came to you, فَنَسِيتَهَا, you forgot them. وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. So this day as well, you will be forgotten. This day, you too will be forgotten. You forgot my signs, so now you too will be forgotten. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look at that person with mercy. So this verse is an eye-opener for each and every single one of us, that we should always give priority to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, that at all times we have to give priority to Allah, and the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should never take a back seat. We should make sure that we give full devotion to whatever Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us. We need to give full devotion to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By adopting and following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's salvation in this life and there's salvation in the hereafter. So this is brief summary of juz number 16. Well, some of the questions I received today, let me just address them quickly. So first question I got today was, okay, conveying the reward of actions in this world to the dead. So conveying the reward of actions in this world to the dead. Now, first and foremost, understand that this is something permissible. Rather, it is encouraged that a person conveys rewards upon the deceased. This is mentioned in the Sunnah, and this is something that the Sharia has permitted, allowed, and it is encouraged. The proof of this is hadith in Muwatta Imam Malik, in Abu Dawud, and in Nasa'i. Sayyiduna Sa'ad bin Waqas radiallahu anhu, he asked that, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my mother has passed away. My mother has passed away. Which form of charity for sending her reward is most superior? Which charity is most superior? And he's asking in the context of for sending her reward. So the Prophet ﷺ said that water is the most superior charity. So at this, Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, he said that he had a well excavated for the reward of his mother. So this is an authentic hadith which is in the Muwatta Imam Malik, it's in Abu Dawud, it's in Nasa'i. Now, the reason why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that water was the most superior was because it was needed in Medina. Firstly, water is particularly needed everywhere when you look at it, especially in hot countries. And there was scarcity of water in Medina Munawwara at the time. Aside from this, there is a general benefit in water, and the need was also general. So if there is a need for something specific elsewhere, then that too is permissible as long as a person makes this intention that the rewards of this will go to the deceased. It's also it's also mentioned in one hadith that the person who starts a system of supplying water from which humans, birds, jinn will drink will continue receiving its rewards even after death, and this will continue till the day of Qiyamah. A person came to Abdullah bin Mubarak. Abdullah bin Mubarak, rahimahullah, was a very great tabi'i, one of the students of Abu Hanifa, contemporary of Abu Hanifa, and he said that there is a this person came to Abdullah bin Mubarak, and he said that there's a wound on my knee that's festering, and it's been there for 7 years. I've tried every type of medicine and cure, and nothing has benefited me. Nothing is allowing this wound to fully and completely heal. And I've also visited renowned physicians, and they have not given me anything to so that my wound heals. So Abdullah bin Mubarak said that have a well dug at a place where there's scarcity of water, and I have hope in Allah that when water comes out from there, then the bleeding on your knee shall stop, that whatever ailment you are suffering from, this will stop. So the person did as was suggested to him, and this wound healed. This is the barakah of Isal Thawab, conveying the rewards of whatever act of virtues and devotions we do in this world to the deceased. There was a famous hadith scholar by Hakim, Abu Abdullah al-Hakim. I believe I read from his book a few days back, and he had some wounds on his face. So he tried all sorts of treatments, and none of these treatments they've proved to be useful. So he spent a year like this. So exasperated, once he asked his teacher, Abu Uthman Sabuni, rahimahullah, to pray for him. So it was a Friday, and it's always a good thing to pray on Friday, where there is a huge jama'ah, because who knows whose dua is going to be accepted. And there's so many people saying Ameen to the person who's making dua. So he supplicated for a long time. The congregation said Ameen. So this is another proof. Sometimes people ask that, why are there people supplicating on Jumu'ah, and why are people saying Ameen? Well, this is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with doing that. This is something that the Sharia has allowed, the Sharia has permitted. Classical scholars, they would do this. So after that, the next Friday, a woman arrived, and she presented a small note, a small note which was written that when I returned home the previous Friday, I continued diligently supplicating for Hakim. Hakim was a very great muhaddis. So in a dream, I saw the Prophet ﷺ, who said that tell Hakim to make water abundantly available for the Muslims. So Imam Hakim rahimahullah, he heard this, and he had a public fountain established on his door, in which arrangements were made for it to be replenished with water and ice. So a week passed, and all of the wounds on his face, they healed. And his face, it was completely as if nothing was wrong with it. So this is just the barakah of doing good for the Muslims, of doing good for anyone for that matter. And again, these are not just stories that we just read. This isn't targheeb. These are in authentic books. These are true stories which have been passed down. And this is all taken from hadith. The Sahaba, they would engage in conveying rewards, whatever acts of devotions they did, they would convey these rewards to their deceased, to their loved ones. It's mentioned in another hadith of Sayyidina Sa'ad radiallahu anh. He asked that, O Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when my mother was alive, she was performing Hajj. She was performing Hajj with my wealth, and she used to give in charity with my wealth, maintain ties, and support people. Now she has passed away. If we were to carry out all these works on her behalf, would she benefit? So the Prophet ﷺ replied that yes, it would reach her, and she would definitely benefit. So again, this is evidence and proof, clear proof, that it's permissible to convey rewards to the dead. It's mentioned in a hadith that a woman asked the Prophet ﷺ, my mother has suddenly passed away. If she had not passed away suddenly, then she would have given some charity. And if I were to give some charity on her behalf, then would it be from her? So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, give charity on her behalf. And what that means is that she will benefit. That she will benefit, the deceased will benefit. So one should diligently perform acts of righteousness, isal thawab, on behalf of one's parents, spouses, siblings, children's, relatives, particularly those whose wealth may have reached us after their death, or they had carried out special acts of kindness to us, such as our teachers, our shuyukh. And this is just one way of remembering them. So whenever uh, our loved ones they pass, then we should make some arrangement in areas where there's scarcity of water to provide water. And if that's not the case, if that's not something that we can do, then the least we can do is provide some Qur'ans to the local masjid. Give some Qur'ans to the local masjid so that they stay in the masjid. Put a note over there that says waqf, that this is an endowment to the masjid, and that whoever reads from this, keep such and such person in their pious dua. So as I said, there's nothing wrong with conveying rewards to the dead. This is something that has been permitted by the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. There is nothing wrong with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all understanding. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions before we... Oh, there is. Let me see. We have over here. Okay, on the night of Mi'raj, when the Prophet ﷺ met Allah, he greeted by saying the first part of tashahhud. So the tashahhud, many people they assume that the tashahhud, at-tahiyatu lillahi was-salawatu wat-tayyibat, this was a conversation between Allah and the Prophet ﷺ during Mi'raj, during the night journey. So the Prophet ﷺ began with at-tahiyatu lillahi was-salawatu wat-tayyibat, and which means that all praise is for Allah. At-tahiyat means praise and glory be unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded by Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And the angels they said Assalamu alayna wa ala no, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. And so this was a conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not mentioned in any authentic hadith. It is mentioned by one of the jurists in his book without any chain of narrators. And there is, many scholars, they tried to locate a chain, but they were unable to do that. This narration should not be quoted. It should not be attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. It should not be attributed that this is something that was part of Mi'raj. There are other authentic incidents that took place during Mi'raj. Those should be quoted instead. At-Tahiyyat was not a conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the tashahhud. So this was not a conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We should always try to make sure, especially when it comes to forwards, we should try to do our part in making sure that whatever we are forwarding is actually accurate, something that can be sourced, something that can be verified, something that is in hadith. This is the responsible way of sending forwards. And these forwards that some people send, that if this is not sent, then such and such thing is going to happen. This is just nonsensical, doesn't make sense. And we don't believe in, as Muslims, we don't believe in superstitions. This was a concept, or this was something that the pre-Islamic Arabs, they would believe in different types of superstitions. As Muslims, we don't believe in superstitions. We believe in the Quran and Sunnah and the legacy Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left behind after he left this world. Okay. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Again, one of the du'as that we should often recite in the month of Ramadan is Allahumma ja'alni indaka walija. Allahumma ja'alni indaka walija. That, oh Allah, make me walija. As I've mentioned before, walija means someone who is coming in and out of the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that this person has a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allahumma ja'alni indaka walija. It's just three words. Allahumma ja'alni indaka walija. Very simple and very effective and very powerful dua. So we should make this dua. Another dua is that Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay. That Allahumma inni as'aluka, that, oh Allah, I beseech you, I implore you, I supplicate you. Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati, with your rahmah, with your compassion, which encompasses wasi'at kulla shay, which encompasses everything. And this is one of the adab and one of the etiquettes of dua, that we don't go right into the dua. Rather, we glorify Allah, we acknowledge the greatness of Allah, the majesty of Allah. After that, we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is another dua that we should make during iftar. Allahumma inni as'aluka Allahumma inni as'aluka birahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay an taghfira li, that you forgive me, an taghfira li, that you forgive me, and then you can continue with your dua. But an effective dua, they're all effective. All of the du'as that the Prophet ﷺ would recite and taught the ummah, they're all very effective. But this dua in the month of Ramadan should consistently be read. Allahumma ja'alni indaka walija. That, oh Allah, make me your walija. Make me someone who is going in and out of your court. Make me have a relationship with you. And waj'alni zulfa wa husna ma'ab. Make me someone who is a confidant, a close person to you, and wa husna ma'ab, and make my abode a good one. So these are just du'as that we should try to memorize in the month of Ramadan, and we should supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with these du'as, because these were the du'as that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would use to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, we can always make du'as in our own languages. There's nothing wrong with that. We should make du'as in our own languages if it's difficult for us to make du'a in the Arabic language. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all understanding, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to take advantage in this blessed month of these precious moments. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.